Any boxing fan with a long enough memory will surely look back with more than just a touch of nostalgia to the glorious days of the Four Kings: Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, and Roberto Duran. But every boxer has a story, and Leonard's is darker than you might realize. Sugar Ray Leonard was a hugely talented boxer who took gold at the Olympics and went on to be involved in some of the sport's most memorable bouts, facing off against Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. With these three boxers, he made up the quartet we now refer to as the Four Kings, and it was a time when boxing was graced by four astonishing talents, all active at the same time in the same weight divisions, and who were all willing to square off against each other to see who emerged as the greatest of them all. However, while Leonard was known for his skill and all-action style inside the ring, it was events outside of that determined the course of his life, because if Leonard had been given the choice, he would never have become a professional boxer at all. Many boxers come from troubled or difficult backgrounds. Think of Mike Tyson growing up on the mean streets of Brooklyn, Manny Pacquiao, who was raised in poverty in the Philippines, or Sonny Liston, who experienced severe beatings administered by his father as a young boy. Boxers like these saw the sport as their ticket out, and I'm sure you can think of countless of others. Leonard, though, had a different kind of background. His family weren't rich, but they weren't poor. His parents both had respectable jobs, and although he was a quiet child, Leonard never got into trouble at school. That's not to say his childhood was completely uneventful. One time, he was lucky to survive a serious car crash when his mother was driving, and on another occasion, he narrowly avoided drowning in a creek before he had learned to swim. He also grew up around alcohol abuse and domestic violence, but at least he wasn't the kind of kid who went out and got into scrapes or had any trouble with the law. He got into boxing at 13 through his older brother, inspired by the trophies his brother was bringing home from the boxing club, and he quickly discovered it was something he was more than just moderately good at. Fast forward to the age of 20, and he was standing on the podium collecting the gold medal for the USA at the Montreal Olympics. He had achieved everything he had hoped for in boxing, and now with an exceptional amateur record of 165-5, it was time to hang up the gloves, leave boxing behind, and go to college. As he had always intended at this point in his life, Leonard had no intention of ever boxing again, but fate was to put a stop to all that. 2 years previously, Leonard's girlfriend, Juanita Wilkinson, had given birth to their first son, Ray Jr., when Leonard had been just 17. Although they wanted to marry, their plans had been put on hold due to Leonard's involvement in the Olympics. In the meantime, Wilkinson and Lil Ray had stayed with Wilkinson's parents, and Wilkinson had applied for child support payments. Then, just after Leonard's Olympic success, the state attorney's office opened proceedings against Leonard to force him to pay to support the child as the boy's father. But worse was to come, because at around the same time, Leonard's father fell sick with meningitis, and his mother suffered a heart attack. So with the child and its mother to support, as well as two sick parents, Leonard saw no other option than giving up his aspirations of going to college and becoming a professional boxer instead. And financially, at least, the decision paid off. On turning pro, Leonard was backed by a group of acquaintances who raised $21,000 to invest in his career, which Leonard was then to pay back over the next 4 years. As it turned out, though, Leonard didn't need anything like 4 years to pay back the loan, since he made almost twice that from his first bout and was able to pay back the investors right after the fight. Leonard then went on to become the first fighter to take home over $100 million in career purses, which is surely far more than he could ever have dreamed of making if he had graduated from college and pursued a more regular career. So it seems he made the right choice. But while few boxers are ever able to achieve the kind of financial or sporting success that marked his career, the soaring high he enjoyed in the ring would come back to torture him when he tried repeatedly to retire and move on with nothing in his life to replace the excitement of big-time boxing. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So for those less familiar with Leonard's career, let's remind ourselves of some of the highlights. As a gold-winning Olympian, his career progressed rapidly, and in his 26th fight as a pro, he took the WBC and Ring Magazine SE welterweight titles from Wilfred Benitez at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. But he only managed to defend these titles once, losing them 2 fights later against another of the Four Kings, Roberto Duran, in a classic bout billed as the Brawl in Montreal. During much of that fight, Duran smothered Leonard and denied him the space he needed to work. Leonard did have some success, staggering Duran in the second and then coming on strong in the fifth, But he was unable to press his advantage. Duran regained the ascendancy, but was unable to finish Leonard, and somehow the fight went to the judges' scorecards, with Duran taking the win by unanimous decision and handing Leonard his first defeat in the professional ranks. Leonard then avenged this loss and regained his titles in his next outing in a rematch in New Orleans. This famous battle became known as the No Moss fight after Donan quit turning his back and telling the referee Noah's, which means no more in Spanish. Duran was known for not looking after himself in between fights, ballooning up in weight, and Leonard had pursued the immediate rematch with this in mind. Leonard was by far the better fighter on the night, and he constantly taunted his opponent by pretending to wind up exaggerated beyond the lookout punches and flicking out jabs. It was probably the frustration this caused as much as the punches he was taking that caused Duran to decide he'd had enough and returned to his corner as the eighth round drew to a close. For younger fight fans, this is about Vasily Lomachenko was referring to when he branded himself Namaskenko after causing Guarando to quit on his stool in 2017. Leonard then went on to settle the score in the trilogy fight, which was given the tagline Uno Mas, meaning one more 9 years later. But by then, Duran was already way past his best, and the fight turned out to be a bit of a stinker. Duran was the only one of the four kings to score a win over Leonard, who also defeated Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. Although Hearns managed a draw in their rematch, the first fight between Leonard and Hearns was an instant classic, winning Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year. Leonard was also chosen as Ring's Fighter of the Year that year, one of 2 times he was awarded this prestigious accolade. However, many felt Leonard was lucky to take the W, since they felt the stop stage, which came in the 14th round, and with Hearns up on the scorecards, was premature. If Hearns had been allowed to continue and had then managed to survive the 14th and see out the 15th, he would have gone home with the titles. The fights these 4 boxers shared define the era, and their rivalries are remembered as one of the golden ages of boxing. As well as reigning at welterweight, Leonard also captured titles in the light middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight divisions, making him a 5'8" world champion. But during his career, Leonard retired 3 times before finding he was unable to resist the temptation to fight on, returning each time after a short hiatus. And this inability to stay retired perhaps hinted at something darker that Leonard was trying to deal with in the background, as many fighters who came before and after Leonard have discovered boxing is like a drug, and once a fighter hangs them up, it can be impossible to replicate the adrenaline highs produced by being locked in gladiatorial combat in the ring. And like many other fighters, when Leonard tried to wean himself off the addictive drug that is boxing, he turned to other drugs to replace it. And in his case, the drug of choice was cocaine. Leonard also drank, and when he drank, he beat his wife. Juanita Wilkinson had been his childhood sweetheart and was the mother of his 2 sons, but she filed for a divorce 10 years after they married, citing domestic abuse as well as alcohol and drug use in her testimony. For his part, Leonard owned his mistakes. He freely confessed to his problems with alcohol and cocaine, saying later of his 3 years as a cocaine user that it had been childish and stupid. He also expressed shame for his behavior and the hurt he had caused to the people he loved the most. His cocaine use began after his first fight with Hearns, the match known as the Showdown, when he suffered a detached retina, and training at the time his doctors told him that he risked permanent blindness in one eye if he fought on. So convinced his career was over, he turned to the buzz of occasional cocaine use to replace the buzz of the arena. He was never an addict, but he later claimed that he used cocaine as well as alcohol when he felt bad to help him forget. His drug use didn't last long, only around 3 years, but it was a low point in his life. In the end, he decided to quit cocaine and continue fighting when, in his own words, he woke up in the morning and found that what he saw in the mirror was scary as immense regret for his actions, and his contrition is clear when you hear his own words on the matter. Here's a young man that had everything in the world, from money to fame, glory, a beautiful family, and kids. Why would he do that? It's almost inconceivable. He said having given up cocaine in 1986, he also stopped drinking in 2006 and has since tried to channel his energies into more positive endeavors. Having been taken to dark places by his own experiences of substance abuse, he now uses his position of fame and influence to help persuade others of the benefits of clean and healthy living. But it also turns out that trying to replace the thrill of the ring was not the only demon Leonard had been battling when he released his autobiography entitled The Big Fight: My Life in and Out of the Ring. He revealed that in his early years as a boxing amateur, he had been sexually abused by an unnamed prominent Olympic boxing coach, an experience that has understandably stayed with him throughout his entire life. He is now dedicated to encouraging the victims of similar crimes to come forward and to helping them deal with the trauma inflicted by the perpetrators of such vile acts. Leonard now calls himself a leader and a poster child for speaking out against child sexual abuse. In addition, he is an advocate for childhood diabetes, raising funds, and working to raise awareness of the condition. He also devotes time to raising money to provide accessible housing, health care services, educational services, and job training in communities across the U.S. A much reformed character since his days of alcohol and drug abuse. Leonard has now remarried and has a daughter, Camille, with his second wife, Bernarde. Even while he was still boxing, Leonard began a successful career in television, appearing as a pundit on several television networks. He has also appeared in a number of TV shows and even started his own boxing promotional company in partnership with ESPN. So it seems that in the end he won the battle against the demons that pursued him for so long and has finally transitioned into a happier and more fulfilled life outside of the ring. However, his fight against alcohol and drugs, as well as the one against the memory of sexual abuse that haunted him throughout his life, were at least as tough as any of the battles he faced inside the ropes. And like the true great champion he was and always will be, he still managed to have his hand raised at the end. What are your favorite memories from Leonard's career in the era of the Four Kings? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and hit the subscribe button to support us in producing more boxing content in the future. See you in the next one.